At this point, with Overwatch's 4th anniversary just passing us by, I don't need to tell you anything about the game. Its charming characters and esports scene began to dominate popular gaming moments after its release, and, almost miraculously, it has stayed at the forefront of gaming across its lifespan. And with a sequel on the horizon, it is clear that Overwatch is not going anywhere. But then again, this is no surprise with the game coming from Blizzard, who are known for their endlessly popular franchises. But just because Overwatch is ubiquitous, it doesn't mean there aren't things we're still discovering. Welcome to ZeroDeaths. So strap in as we hurtle through 15 things you, or at least we, didn't know about Overwatch. Number 1. Geoff was there from the very beginning. Lots of us will know that Overwatch emerged from the aftermath of Titan, an MMO Blizzard had been developing for over 7 years before it was dropped. When this project fell apart, most of the team was relocated across Blizzard's various IPs, but a small group of around 40 staff were given the task to come up with a new game concept which utilized some of Titan's design in a few months. And, you guessed it, Geoff Kaplan was the head of that very team, and remains at the forefront of Overwatch 7 years later. The relationship we all have with Geoff as the game's director is rather unique, with most community outreach being recorded and presented by the man himself, making him a real fan favorite, especially given he is almost as charming as the Overwatch heroes himself. Number 2. The first time you could play Tracer wasn't in Overwatch. Although Tracer serves as Overwatch's poster girl, the first time players actually got a hold of her was in Blizzard's MOBA crossover game, Heroes of the Storm, where she debuted 2 weeks before Overwatch's open beta. That said, playing her in Heroes of the Storm doesn't bring you the thrills of speed the first-person perspective brings, so it can hardly be considered the same thing. Number 3. Tracer was a man? The prototype for Tracer was ripped right from Titan's Jumper class, which originally saw players make short jumps around the map. As the jumper was adapted by the newfound Overwatch development team, their abilities quickly morphed into what we are familiar with today. But the big difference was that the character model depicted in most of the concept artwork was male. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't picture a male version of Tracer. But that's not to say that changing the jumper to be female was an easy feat. Number 4. Female Tracer was too sexualized. One of Tracer's original victory poses, first seen on Blizzard's promotional materials, seemed to draw far too much attention to her behind, pulling in criticisms on Blizzard forums from fans worried about over-sexualization. However, Blizzard quickly responded, with Kaplan himself apologizing profusely, and the team swiftly changed the victory pose to a slightly more modest, but still hugely characterful, position. And, to my eyes, it's better for it. Number 5. If you thought Tracer was over-sexualized. Although Tracer's misrepresentation was quickly picked up on by fans and rectified by the team, a similar problem occurred with the French catsuit-clad Widowmaker. On release of the game, some players noticed a strange interaction with Widowmaker's derriere when she used her ultimate. It inflated and bounced around. Needless to say, by the time this was picked up on, it was gone. Number 6. X-Rated Overwatch. Seeing as we're on the topic of over-sexualization, it is both interesting and somewhat disturbing that upon the launch of the game's beta, a popular adult website, Pornhub if you want to be specific, saw an 817% spike in the search term Overwatch, meaning that no matter how hard Blizzard tries to remove the sexualization, it will always be out there if you look hard enough. Number 7. Blizzard was called out by the president of the Universal Society of Hinduism. To top off Overwatch's history of misrepresentation, in July of 2016, Rajan Zed, the president of the Universal Society of Hinduism, urged Blizzard to remove or alter Symmetra's Devi and Goddess skins. This was due to the society finding the portrayal of Hinduism to be somewhat inaccurate and promoted misconceptions about the religion. That said, the skins are still in the game today, meaning this is one of the few occasions when Blizzard hasn't taken notice of representational issues. Perhaps if Zed had posted on the Blizzard forums, there may have been a different result. Number 8. Overwatch was made for the community, not for esports. Returning to the design philosophy of Overwatch, it is important to remember that although the Overwatch League has taken over much of the game's outreach, the game was originally crafted for the community. Unlike many of the other Blizzard games, we're looking at you, StarCraft, Overwatch didn't factor competitive play into its initial design, with competitive game modes debuting within the game months after the initial release, and the professional esports scene developing over the following years. This is probably why Overwatch succeeded at taking the hearts of gamers and non-gamers alike, as its overarching principle is to enjoy, putting it in opposition to FPS competitors like Counter-Strike and Call of Duty. That said, they also had a lot more in mind for the community. Number 9. The story was always going to be cross-media. From very early on in the process, Geoff and the team had decided to tell the story of Overwatch across various mediums. Deciding on this early on allowed the team to make sure the game focused on fun gameplay experiences, without force-feeding narrative, while also ensuring that the peripheral story-based content felt essential to the franchise, not merely supplements or spin-offs. As such, over the years, we have been graced with graphic novels, literature, and short films which all build on the characters we love and interact with within the game. Number 10. Bastion is not a robot. Omnic, if you want to be specific. Okay, we're slightly cheating here, as Bastion is definitely a robot. But the beeps, boops, and whirs that inject the character into him are not of computational origins. In fact, Blizzard's artist, designer, and regular voice actor Chris Metzen breathed this life into Bastion's metal casing. Of course, they are heavily edited audio clips, but at his heart, Bastion does have some human in him. Number 11. Torbjorn is the most important hero in the game's development. This is the part where most of you curse us for ever suggesting it, and that 1% of you who are Torbjorn mains thank us for finally giving you some recognition. But seriously, Torbjorn, like Tracer, finds his origins in Titan as the tech-heavy dwarf who, then, drew the line between Blizzard's high fantasy of Warcraft and neo-futuristic Starcraft, which turned out to be the exact same style Overwatch took. As such, after Torbjorn's character model was perfected, he became the reference to ensure the design principles remained consistent across the entire game. So, next time you enjoy Overwatch's lovely aesthetic, remember that was all thanks to Torbjorn. Number 12. Jetpack Cat made it into the game. Jetpack Cat is the affectionate nickname given to a cancelled hero which caught the hearts of the community. In short, it was a cat who was strapped into a jetpack who would occasionally paw the controls. You can immediately see why people love this off-the-wall idea so much. However, the character was scratched when the inevitable design difficulties and outright absurdities of the characters finally kicked in. That said, in 2019, it silently entered the game in the form of a Brigitte emote, where she hugs an oversized cat. This ties in perfectly with the lore, as the cat was originally pitched as being the one who hung around Torbjorn's workshop. Number 13. Our favorite hamster was also there from the start. Wrecking Ball, love him or hate him, really shook up Overwatch when he arrived. His incredible speed, health pool, and frustrating control point spins left an incredible mark on everyone. And that's not even considering that everyone thought he was going to be a monkey, not a hamster. Yet Wrecking Ball was one of the earliest character concepts, be it in a non-rodent form. This early concept was Robotic Ball, who was able to pull in and reflect enemy bullets. It sounds pretty wacky, but then we have to remember the prototype of Lucio saw him slowing down time. Number 14. Blizzard endorses alcoholism. Well, the company would probably disagree with this, but one of the most fundamental sounds in the game, that little hip-hip sound you hear when you hit an enemy, is in fact the sound of a beer bottle being opened. Again, like with Bastion earlier, this has obviously gone through a bunch of post-processing, but it's always fascinating to find out where these sounds that are so familiar come from. Number 15. We actually know what's probably in your loot box. Loot boxes are hated by the community at the best of times, known as being exploitative money grabs for the developers. But that said, we all want what's inside. And thanks to various countries classifying loot boxes as gambling, Blizzard was obliged to reveal the exact probabilities of what is inside each one. With every loot box containing at least one rare, one in 5.5 containing an epic, and one in 13.5 holding a sought-after gold legendary. In percentages, that's a 18.2% chance of getting an epic and a 7.4% for a legendary. After finding this out, I thought I wouldn't have as much fun opening loot boxes, but they somehow still hold me on the edge of my seat. There we have it. Were there some Overwatch factoids that we missed out on? Leave them down in the comments. We'd love to hear them. Even with all this knowledge about the inner workings of Overwatch, for some reason I am still stuck in Platinum. Perhaps knowledge isn't power after all. Or, to be honest, perhaps facts don't make you better at playing games. See you in the next one. Make sure to click subscribe to join the ZeroDeaths community. We selected this video for you to watch next.